If you could put 2 points on your record, how many people would be like, hey, you're applying in December. I will give you 2 points right now, and you can apply in September next year. Who wouldn't take it? Hello and welcome to episode 458 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Ben Olson. With me is Nathan Fox. We're the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. Be LSAT famous. Share news and ask questions on our website, thinkinglsat.com. The June LSAT is over, Nathan, which means the games are officially gone.
They are gone. Well, but they're gone by the time this airs. They're not gone in my teaching life. Not quite yet. I have one game on my agenda for Wednesday, and I have one game on my agenda for Thursday. And then that'll be it for me for teaching games. What about you? Are you done forever?
Yeah, I'm done forever. Last class was yesterday and taught a game, and that's it.
I want to take a peek here to see what the last game is. I didn't plan this at all. I could have engineered it, but let's see. Tomorrow night, the last game I'm doing is the company targets game. Oh, this is the website voicemail internet requests. Oh no, sorry. Website targets and voicemail targets for companies I, S, and T. Yeah, I remember that game. A little bit of flexibility.
Voicemail targets. These games are dated.
People still leave voicemails. Every
They
once in a while.
do, yeah, but not really.
Let's see. And then the last one that I will ever do. Oh, no, that is the last one that I will ever do is voicemail targets. Okay. The one before that, tomorrow night from Test F, the game about the speakers. Oh, yeah, the 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. Actually, you know what? I'm not that familiar with this game. That's kind of cool. Interesting. So something that I haven't really spent a whole lot of time on, and then one from Prep Test 68 that I did a million times back in the day. So, yeah, good balance.
I ended on the relatively easy Garibaldi's meetings.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, how do you feel?
I wish they would have stayed. I wish they would have kept the games, but I am glad that they decided to replace the games with logical reasoning. I love logical reasoning. I'm happy to do more of it. I do think that games was a great addition to the LSAT because it tested your ability to read without just giving you a ton of words, right? One thing that's challenging about logical reasoning and reading comprehension is that people struggle to get through long, convoluted sentences, and that's what prevents them from understanding it. In the games, it's like, no, we're not going to play any of those games. We're just going to test, can you read very precisely, even though the sentences are often very short and to the point? So it's a different kind of precision reading, I think, that was tested, and that's going to be lost.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. There's extra words, right? They sort of intentionally shitify the passages in reading comp, and they intentionally kind of obfuscate the conclusion in logical reasoning. They'll why use 3 words when 13 is possible, right?
Yeah.
So they just add extra words. They do that in wrong answer choices. They do it in right answer choices, right? Rather than say it simply and straightforwardly where everybody would get it right, they'll add a bunch of extra words and not really change the meaning, but you have to sort of parse it, right? Make it a triple negative instead of a single negative. And they don't play those games on logic games. On logic games, there's actually sort of more information, isn't there? Because there'll be, it's like an argument that has 6 premises.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of LR normally, there's 1 or 2 premises or something. And on the games, they're giving you a lot more of partially connecting information. But yeah, it's not hard to read. Normally, it's not hard to read the individual pieces of the puzzle. Well, anyway, all this is moot because that's gone. And we're going to have 2 sections of logical reasoning. We're in the new world. So
the new world. Yeah, totally. And along with that new world comes LSAT writing changes, right? Should we dive into this?
Well, I don't know how much time I want to speak, how much time I want to take on it, because I haven't like really thought about it a lot yet. But I did want to put a call out to listeners. Um, we there is an LSAT argumentative writing prompt available on the LSAC website. We can link to
Okay.
that in our
Yep.
show notes.
Yep.
And what we would like is a volunteer to do this assignment. So write a sample LSAT argumentative writing draft.
Okay.
We'll
Good.
pick one and
Yep.
we'll talk about it on the show.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I think that's the best way of digging in to LSAT argumentative writing. I just, if you want to hear a little bit of my hot take speculation on it, now that I've seen this first sample prompt, it's not quite what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a little bit more like, I liked the old LSAT writing. I thought that the old LSAT writing was kind of practical in that it was like, here, take a fixed universe of facts and then make an argument based on these facts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there wasn't any right answer. It wasn't about figuring out the right answer. You could always have argued it one way or the other way. But the assignment was to argue based in a repository of facts. And I thought that that tested nicely your ability to just read information and then marshal it on the page in your own words.
Sure. Sort of like an attorney takes the facts that have been accepted into the record and makes an argument that fits that with the rule of law, as opposed to trying to, I don't know, pull in new extraneous facts.
Right. So instead, on this new one, it starts with this. What is this? This is 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences, kind of long sentences about a proposal to change the emphasis in college toward studying more practical skills. Then there's a key question that says, to what extent do colleges and universities serve their students' best interests when they emphasize career preparation? Then there are 4 different perspectives, one from a career advice blog, one from a university's promotional brochure, one from a textbook on the sociology of education, one from an excerpt from a journal on higher education. Then there's an overly complicated period for pre-writing analysis where you're supposed to take notes on your digital scratch paper, which you then cannot copy and paste from the digital scratch paper to the actual written document.
Yes, because it's pre-writing, it's not writing. Yeah.
Couldn't they have just made the period longer?
Certainly.
I mean, like, what's the difference between pre-writing and writing? It's part of your process. And what planet are we on where you're going to be taking notes in a document that you then can't copy and paste out of that document? Who would ever do their work that way? So it's like this unnecessary step of artificiality in it, solely just so that they don't have to let you have access to your keyboard commands during the test because they're worried that you're going to cheat or steal their content or whatever. I don't know. It seems like they could have found a better way to work.
They don't
around
want you
that.
to write, for whatever reason, they don't want you to write before the 35-minute time period starts. And so they don't want you writing in your notes and then copying that. Yeah.
Why don't they want you writing during that period? And what difference does it make if you're writing an outline or if you're writing? Anyway, I know that some law school exams follow that same format. I think it's equally stupid there, but you know, that's what this is going to be. And that's not really what I wanted to complain about. What I want to complain about more is that then they are actually asking you for your opinion on the key question. So this is a stark, like 180-degree reversal from what LSAT writing used to be. Because LSAT writing used to be absolutely 100% not about your opinion. Take the facts, make an argument based on those facts. This is, which perspective do you find most compelling? What relevant insights do you see in those perspectives? What principles or values do you see at work in the perspectives? What strengths and weaknesses can you find in the perspectives? Then listen to this. Here's the instruction. Your argument should incorporate or address ideas from at least one of the perspectives provided. So you're sort of required to use one of the 4 perspectives that they gave you. Sounds to me like you could completely ignore the other 3 if you wanted to.
You could, yep.
Then it says, in addition, your own knowledge, experiences, and personal values can be valid sources of evidence. And you can include these in your essay. What knowledge do you already have about the issue? What values influence your position on this issue? What experiences do you have that might be relevant to this issue? And then it goes on and on and on that you're supposed to be writing an argumentative essay in response to the key question. It seems like they're giving about, 4 times as many words here in the instructions as necessary, because they're just repeating themselves. Yep. I mean, the assignment seems to be pretty clear to me that you are just supposed to bullshit about this topic based on, you read some shit and then you can bring in your own outside perspective if you want, and then you just sort of write an opinion essay about it.
That's true. Although they did say, right, how well you write is more important than how much you write. And I do think that they're testing your ability to make a point clearly and provide evidence for that. And so, yes, the outcomes are wide open now, right? But they're essentially going to reward people who can make a clear conclusion and then justify that. So good writers are going to be helped here. It also does sound like, because they're allowing you to incorporate your own opinions, it's the law school's way of letting people spill the beans, I guess, right? Like your own strong, maybe wildly political views could come out.
Ooh.
And right?
So that sounds like something that we might want to caution people against, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
By opening the door here to so much outside information, it's going to allow some people who know how to write to come in, make a clear conclusion, provide strong evidence for that in an organized way, and score lots of points. It's also going to allow people to come in here and just yap and just reveal all sorts of wild thinking that could turn some admissions officers off.
And I feel like people would have done that with the old prompt as well. This one just sort of, it seems to be more like inviting you to actually
It's inviting you to do that. So if you know what you're doing, you won't fall into that trap. You'll keep it professional. Try to make this sound as logical and coherent as possible. But yeah, people are definitely going to take the bait.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems pretty goofy to me. You said score points earlier, and by that you meant absolutely not score points, because it remains an unscored exercise.
Sorry. Yes, metaphorical points. Looking
metaphorical
good.
points with your reader.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe the readers themselves will decide that they're going to score the when they read them. If they read them, maybe they're going to give a score. Sure. I guess there's nothing stopping the schools from scoring you if they wanted to score you.
Yeah, in fact, maybe they do. Maybe they are forced to, on some level, give it a number. Otherwise, how are you going to compare that to all other essays and applications?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that they're only going to be using this if you're like, how would I use it? I would use it to double check. I would read the first sentence of every single one that is submitted to make sure that it's like a clear English sentence that follows the assignment. Beyond that, the people who I'm going to try to offer scholarships to, I don't need to read the rest of this because I already know that I'm offering them a scholarship based on LSAT and GPA. It's like it would be like a reality check. It's just sort of there's something in this person's application that makes me think that maybe they're crazy. Let me go read this whole thing and see if they let the crazy out.
Yeah. Or you're debating anybody that you're on the fence about. You could look into this. I think what they're probably going to do is they're going to take AI. They're going to run these prompts or these essays through that and just scan for things that are potentially problematic. Red flags.
Like what? What would you do?
I mean, you could add a whole set of search ideas, but one would be asking about specific politicians Trump,
Yeah.
Biden.
Does it mention Trump or Biden?
Yeah.
It's like, that could be a red flag.
Yeah. Like, why the hell are you talking about that? But I guarantee you some people probably have. And so,
I mean, I would imagine that Biden could be relevant. He is just signing orders that forgive, hundreds of millions of dollars of federal loans for education. The topic is about education.
sure.
So it seems like that could possibly come up. Yeah, but if it's just somebody like randomly railing against Trump, that would probably look pretty bad because it's just like, what? What are you talking about? It's not relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, if somebody wants to volunteer for this project, we would really appreciate it. Please visit our website if you would like to volunteer for this project. Talk to producer Eric, and hopefully we'll get one of these on maybe the next episode of the show. That'd be nice. Anything more about LSAT argumentative writing?
No, that's great.
We'll cover that more as it approaches. The new prompt is not actually live until August, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Okay, so let's shift to Campbell Law School. On episode 451 of this podcast, we noticed that they were giving full rides to 94% of their class, or at least that's what their 509 ABA report said. And 5% got half to full tuition scholarships. And we were like, what the hell is going on here at Campbell?
Yeah, this was 8 weeks ago on episode 451 of Thinking LSAT. I think we actually entitled that episode, Who Pays for Campbell Law School? Long story short, our team did a bunch of follow-up to Campbell. Apparently, a lot of listeners were also emailing Campbell going, hey, what's going on with your 509? And yeah, to make a longer story shorter, they did update their 509. And now they're showing much different numbers.
Yeah. So the easiest way to find this is to go to our estimator, lsatdemon.com/scholarships, look for Campbell, and you can see the 509 PDF to the right. But you can also just click on the school, and that will take you into our tuition roll call for Campbell. And you can see that only 2% of the class has full tuition scholarships. 32% has more than half, and 66% have less than half. No one is paying full price. I think that's still an important point.
Yeah. It looks like there are... So on the 509 itself, 99% of the people at the school are getting grants. It looks like there are 3 individual people who did not get a grant, but that's less than 1%. So that's why that rounded down on the roll call.
Yeah, rounded down on the roll call.
Yeah.
That is really sad because if you're one of those 3 people, boy, you're paying a fake price. It's not.
You know
a
who
real
that's not
price.
sad to?
Who?
Economists, because economists would just call that price discrimination and they would go, yeah, that's a savvy firm in the market. They have the ability to charge everybody a different price. So they're charging everybody a different price. The reason why they do that is because it helps them to maximize the profit that is available under the demand curve. Charge all these different prices along the demand curve. And so, it's a very profitable strategy, which is why so many schools do it. It is funny, though, that this, American Bar Association Standard 509 information report, this is meant to be a consumer protection doctrine or consumer protection document. And Campbell had just patently wrong information on their 509 for however many weeks until we noticed it. Then another 2 months after we started raising a stink about it, now it finally got corrected. And as we dig in, we're finding more and more errors on other 509 reports from other schools.
Yeah.
So it just seems like this is something that the schools have to do every year, but the ABA doesn't really peek at it. And that's weird.
That's where we come in, I guess. Every year we scour the 509s and update our data.
And our students and listeners do too. If you go to lsatdemon.com/scholarships, you can see a whole list of all of the schools. You can click into their 509s. If you ever see anything that seems really strange, like if you see schools that seem like they're giving way too many scholarships or no scholarships at all, or schools that we see schools that have LSAT numbers that are off, GPA numbers that are off, tuition numbers that are off, enrolled student numbers that don't add up. I mean, we've seen all kinds of errors on these things.
Yeah.
So if you see them and you point them out to us, we can have our team try to follow up and clean up this data. Seems like it'd be nice if somebody at the American Bar Association got on top of this. And when the new reports came out every year, like who holds the school's feet to the fire to say, hey, if we're going to accredit you, then you need to be providing us with correct documents.
Yeah. Well, one project that we're working on right now is to gather this data automatically, not manually, and to do it not only for the current year, but for previous years. So anytime the 509 data gets updated, we will notice, and we can compare it to previous years. I think that's the easiest way to red flag bad information. Nice. Because if there's a big change from one year to the next, it could be legit, but the question is why, right?
I'm glad we've got this information. I hope that they don't take some of this information off the report. I mean, we talked last week or the week before about a proposal to potentially take the 50th percentile LSAT off of the 509s.
Yeah.
And we both were kind of scratching our head like, wait, so it's better for consumers to give them less information?
Yeah.
That's a tough argument to sell, at least to me. But we'll keep you posted. Find us on the socials at Thinking LSAT. If you want to talk to us, go to our website, thinkinglsat.com. Let us know if you notice anything strange or if you have any questions or really any contribution that you want to make to this whole conversation. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Totally. Nathan, really quick, before we jump into today's questions, we do have a small favor to ask, right?
Yeah.
If you like this show and you like what you're hearing, trying to expose the whole law school admissions game and the best way to prepare for the LSAT, please take a moment to like and subscribe wherever you listen or watch. It makes a huge difference to us, and it also helps ensure that you never miss a week of LSAT and law school admissions insights. So anyways, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. No, just really, please. It does actually make a difference. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So thanks.
Thank you. All right, let's go to NAFLSAT. So the subject here from her is it late to apply in October?
Hi, Ben and Nathan. I have two questions. One, the October test is the next test for me after the June one. NAFLSAT's an international student. LSAC says the results for the October test will come out on October 23 of 2024. Would you say applying late in October is a late application for scholarship purposes? That's question number one. Two, I have seen on the Harvard Law School website that foreign transcripts are evaluated by LSAC and transferred to the U.S. letter-based system. If this is the case, my 87.4 out of 100, which is an A here, would be a B+. Am I doomed, or should I write an addendum? Your thoughts on this? And she links to the page on Harvard Law School. But what do you think? Two questions. First one, is it too late after the October test?
Well, I think it is on some level. And we should talk about that, right? Once we jump into this study.
From UChicago, Journal of Law and Economics, yes.
Yeah, which we will discuss next. In terms of the second question, if your grade of 87.4 out of 100 is actually an A where you're at, then I would write an addendum explaining that. I guess I'm a little confused though, like what makes it an A? Because you don't have A's, B's, and C's where you're at. So if I saw 87.4 out of 100, I would think that's a B+.
Yeah, that's just the convention here. I mean, what's your class rank? What's 87.4 out of 100 in terms of rank? I don't really know. Do you know, Ben, what LSAC does when it evaluates foreign transcripts?
I don't know exactly, but it's not unreasonable to see 87% become a B plus.
That wouldn't be reasonable in the United States, yes, but they might apply different standards to different schools.
They might.
I mean, I think the thing that NAFSAT has to do is upload her transcripts and see what happens,
Yep.
right? Like, have you actually done it yet? Instead of speculating about it, NAFSAT, you just need to pull the trigger and have those transcripts uploaded and evaluated by LSAC, and then LSAC will or will not give you an LSAC GPA. Sometimes international students just don't even get LSAC GPAs. So I'm not convinced that you will have one. Like Harvard Law School says that that's what happens, that they transfer it to a US letter-based system. But I believe that a certain number of applicants do apply without an undergraduate GPA.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you might not really know until you do the credential assembly service thing with LSAC and actually have those transcripts uploaded. You
Sounds
agree with that?
good. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. What do you think about the October test being too late? And maybe this is a good time to dive into this paper.
Yeah, let's dive into it. Let's talk about what it's found or what it thinks is happening, and then come back to NAFSAT's question. This is a study, by the way, that was sent to us by LSAT Demon student Marvin. You can actually see Marvin if you go watch episode 813 of the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. He went from a 157 to a 170 something. But anyways, Marvin, thank you so much for sharing this. This is how we find so much of our news. This paper is fascinating. Do you want to read the abstract and maybe actually pause after each sentence? Because I think there's a decent amount packed in here.
Sure. So the title is Dynamic Decision Making Under Rolling Admissions, Evidence from U.S. Law School Applications by Luo and Wang at U Chicago Journal of Law and Economics. The abstract says, admission processes in many higher education markets are inherently dynamic.
So I think this is going to get to what this whole paper is about, but essentially admissions processes are not fixed. They're changing constantly, not only from year to year, but also within the same year.
Also interesting that they're calling it a market.
Yeah, they recognize first and foremost what it actually is. It's not a institution of higher learning. It's a business selling you a product.
I mean, these are presumably economists writing in an economic journal, and so to them, everything is a market. But I am sympathetic to this view. Are you not as well?
I am. I mean, granted, I studied econ in my undergrad, so
Yeah. I mean, they're selling you a wildly expensive product, and yeah, you should. That's fair. To call this a market. There's buyers, that is all the applicants. There are sellers, that is the limited schools, and then you have the perverse incentive of the third party who is like actually handling the transaction, so that the buyers don't have to pay money today. They can pay money 3 years from now, 4 years from now. And that's why the sellers are able to charge fictional prices for these very very ephemeral is the word I was looking for. Very ephemeral things, this degree,
Yeah.
like, well, they can't ever take it away from you. You can take it wherever you go. Yeah, but it also is nothing. It's a piece of paper, right?
Yep.
Ready for me to read the second sentence of this?
Yep.
We study the timing of students' applications and schools' admissions under rolling admissions using unique data on U.S. law schools.
Okay. So they're going to NAFSAT's question, what happens when people apply at different times of the cycle?
Our results show that law schools employ non-stationary admission standards within application cycles. That is, applications submitted earlier enjoy a considerable advantage relative to later applications.
It's it's academic, right? It's a little wordy, but non-stationary, I think is significant there. It's what we were saying earlier. The standards change as the cycle progresses. So
The
people who apply
goalposts
earlier are treated
move.
differently. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you apply earlier, they just got finished finally filling their class for the previous year and all the drama that entails with last minute wait lists, students not telling them yes or no, people dragging their feet, people trying to renegotiate scholarships. Somebody gets in off the Harvard wait list, then somebody withdraws from Columbia because they're going to go to Harvard. Then somebody gets in off the Columbia wait list, then somebody withdraws from UCLA because they're going to go to Columbia. And then this whole, trickle down effect that happens. And you got like 200 American Bar Association accredited law schools that are all playing the same game all the way up until like September 1st, school starts. And now they have to do it again. They open up the admissions window for the following year. And now, instead of having a couple seats to fill at the last minute, they have hundreds of seats to fill. They have a year to do it, but they have hundreds of seats to fill. And they want to get people locked in if they can.
Absolutely. And the people who are applying early and have their shit together. I mean, that right there is something that's not explicitly on your application, but it is implied by the fact that you applied early.
Ben, you know how airline tickets are cheaper when you book them 4, 6, 8 weeks in advance?
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing here.
Yeah, exactly. They want to make sure they're going to make money on that flight, and they want to encourage you to get on it and commit to it.
And I get it that there are sometimes circumstances where you can also get cheap last minute flights, but the airlines, they make money by flying full flights.
Mm-hmm.
And so normally what's going to happen is they're going to book the flight up as much as they possibly can, as far in advance as they possibly can. If they have a couple seats available at the last minute, those are going to go for really high prices because there's limited supply. And if there's demand, they're going to force the people who demand it to pay up for it. But a flight a month from now, there's so much competition. It's nothing but empty planes. And so now they have to compete on price for your business if you're planning ahead.
Yeah. Well, I want to say one thing about your analogy, because there is a part of it that kind of breaks down, but breaks down in favor of the point that you're trying to make. And that is, as you get closer to a flight, right? There's more demand for those remaining seats, but how much demand is there really? I mean, there may not be that many more people who actually want those seats. But when we're talking about law school, especially schools at the top of the rankings, there is an unlimited supply of people who are banging on the door trying to get in there. So they're not going to run out of options. It's just how much further down the ladder do they want to go. But at the end of the cycle, they don't need to do that.
Well, the other thing that they're doing is they're constantly have an eye on their LSAT and GPA profiles as they admit their classes, right? Mm-hmm. Guaranteed that when people start paying their seat deposits, I mean, they have an estimate of what their LSAT numbers are going to look like based on who they've offered admission to.
Yeah.
But as people start to make seat deposits and other people start to say, no, I'm going to Harvard or wherever else, then they start to get a clearer picture of, okay, what's my median going to be this year?
Yeah.
And they do not want that median to go down. So they might have capacity at the last minute, but do they have capacity to admit people who are below their median?
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
that's going to cost you.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to pay full price, apply late in the cycle, there are probably places that will take you and take your money.
Yep.
But if you want to pay a good price and you want to go to the best school you can possibly get into, you want hopefully to be getting offers in January. And you're not getting offers in January if you waited for the October LSAT and then applied in November. I mean, maybe you might catch one of the cycles and you might get an offer somewhere in January, but the people who, it didn't happen quite as much this year. This is a dynamic market that we're looking at. But remember, it was like a couple of years ago, there were full ride offers that were coming out in September.
Yeah.
Maybe even August.
Yeah.
Some schools had opened their admission window.
No, we saw one at the end of August. I don't know if it was like the
Yeah.
28th or the 24th or whatever, but people had already written in and said, this is the full ride I got.
Yep. So this is no surprise that they have found that applications submitted earlier enjoy a considerable advantage relative to later applications. I think that they also found that it affects scholarships.
Yeah. Let's keep going because there's some, like this data has some mildly interesting implications.
Okay.
Well, so for example, they pulled from a data set, right, of 84,000 applicants who submitted applications, 84,000 applications submitted by 9,000 applicants. So I guess I was just looking at that and saying, oh, okay, there's 84,000 applications for 9,000 applicants. That means on average, we're looking at a little over 9 applications per applicant. Obviously, that can vary widely. I don't know what the median is. That would be more interesting. But there's a number for you. At least people who are on law school numbers, on average, they're applying to at least 9 schools.
Yeah, I mean, and there are going to be some biases in those numbers, right? Law school numbers uses self-reported data. So these are going to skew in a gunner type of a direction, right? I would imagine that the typical law school numbers applicant is more savvy than the average applicant.
Absolutely. And so if you want to play this game right, you want to be more like them than even what maybe the normal average is.
Yeah.
Anyways,
highlights.
Yeah, let's go through the highlights.
First one. This is a quote from the paper. Overall, an application delay of 100 days is associated with a drop in the probability of admission of around 8.5 percentage points, a disadvantage comparable to lowering the applicant's undergraduate GPA by 0.26 or LSAT scores by 2.1 points. So, translate that into the actual fall admission cycle. The difference between a September 1st application and 100 days later would be not quite till the end of the year, right? Hurts your chances of getting in, all else equal, by 8.5 percentage points. Hurts your scholarships, don't really know how much, but probably by a similar amount. They try to equate that to either 1/4 of a point of GPA, which is a lot, or 2.1 LSAT points, which
is also a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's significant, right? It's also the kind of advantage that people routinely get way more than that through LSAT prep. So if your question is, do I apply in September even though I haven't prepared for the LSAT, or do I apply in December after preparing for the LSAT? It would seem clearly better that you should apply in December after preparing for the LSAT, or like NAFSAT maybe needs to retake the test in October.
Yeah, but what you really do, right, is you prepare for the LSAT, you get your score fine in December, but then you apply in September of the following cycle. Because then
if
you could put 2 points on your record, how many people would be like, hey, you're applying in December, I will give you 2 points right now, and you can apply in September next year.
Right.
Who wouldn't take it?
Right. Right. So to put it in a different, in slightly different terms, would you rather apply in early December with a 170, or would you rather apply next cycle with a 172? Well, next cycle with a 172 is obviously way better.
Yeah.
So just that, I mean, you're still applying with your same 170, but
really it's worth a 168, right? So maybe the comparison, do you want to apply at the beginning of the cycle with a 170, or do you want to take your 170 now, which is really just worth a 168?
Getting discounted by, making it worse. Sure. Ready for the next quote?
Well, I had a question for you on this one. So because they've given us these numbers, we could add to the estimator, when do you plan to apply? And then adjust the estimates based on the timing of the application.
Yeah, I'm not against it.
It's a little rough, obviously, because it's going to vary from school to school. But maybe it would help hit home the point. You're taking a risk.
So September 1 is day 1. And then it's
Yeah,
basically 1 point for every 50 days from that point forward
exactly.
that we would discount your LSAT by.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate it. I think it's probably a good idea. Yeah, definitely something to consider doing.
Yeah.
All right, next bullet. We also document that the advantage of early applications is greater for higher ranking law schools and underrepresented minority groups and during boom years of the legal education market. That's really interesting.
Um,
Last one is not so
wait,
interesting.
the thing that's interesting about those three things is that all three of them represent greater scarcity and competition. So basically, as the competition increases, the advantage of applying early also increases, which makes sense because edge cases
The middle
matter
one
more.
doesn't. Well, I mean,
No, I think it is because underrepresented minorities are a competitive, scarce group for these schools.
right. But being an underrepresented minority makes it easier to get into schools. Boom years makes it harder to get into schools. Higher ranking law schools are harder to get into. I agree with you. Yes, you're right. URMs is a scarce resource, but that should make it easier for them to get in. So why is it particular? It seems like it would be the opposite, that the effect would be particularly powerful for the people who there are too many of them.
Yeah, I see what
Like
you're
boom
saying.
years, right? If it were analogous. But I do have a hypothesis about why URMs might be particularly affected by this.
I thought it was because from the school's perspective, they're more competitive. But yeah, okay. What's your hypothesis?
My hypothesis is that they do admit URMs with lower LSAT, lower GPA. And in the beginning of the cycle, they can plan on it. But at the end of the cycle,
oh, they can't. Yeah.
When they admit people with lower numbers, it's just dragging down. They've already like gotten to the point where like, oh, we can't allow our medians to fall anymore.
Yeah.
So URMs aren't going to get as much of a boost late in the cycle as they would early in the cycle. Because early in the cycle, you've got a URM applying with an LSAT or a GPA that you know is going to be below your medians. But you're like, yeah, I know, but we need to work on our diversity numbers, or not numbers anymore. But they're like, we want diverse experiences in our school. So we're going to be willing to admit this person with lower LSAT, lower GPA than we would if they were not an underrepresented minority.
Yeah.
Provided they apply early. Obviously, at higher ranked law schools, those schools are just harder to get into. So earlier you apply, the better. Obviously, in boom years, when there's going to be thousands and thousands of applications, earlier the better. And then if you're a URM, apparently, I think I would speculate that it's for that other reason.
Yep.
All right. A few bullets here, or one long bullet about the rounds-based admission process. In practice, many law schools evaluate applications and make offers in rounds. They accumulate a pool of applicants until a cutoff date, make offers to that pool, and continue to accumulate applications arriving in subsequent pools while conducting evaluations at the end of each round. Although schools may or may not evaluate applications in strictly separate rounds throughout the entire application season, our data suggests that very few of them make offers immediately in the early stages of the decision-making process. Almost all of them wait to send offers until accumulating a sufficiently large pool of applications. On the administrative front, schools may also be occupied with promotional activities during September and October. Since admissions thresholds increase at defined points instead of continuously, you hear that? Admissions thresholds increase at defined points instead of continuously. So I'm imagining like a step where it's like, oh yeah, on our first round of admissions, we might admit people at a 165. But then on that next step, it's now going to be a 166. The next step, it's going to be a 167. That didn't happen slowly over time. It happened like in rounds.
Yeah, which makes sense because they have the same criteria for that round, and then they reevaluate for the next round.
Yep. Since they increase at defined points instead of continuously, it is important to submit an application for evaluation in earlier rounds. However, because later rounds are going to be harder. Yeah. However, in our data, 68.3% of applications are submitted after the first round. So the bulk of the applications, over 2/3 of the applications, aren't even going to have a chance at that easiest first round.
By the way, when you talk about competition and scarcity, think about what's also happening as you segment these things into rounds. You're getting more people applying. So,
Yeah.
of course, there's more competition, which makes it easier for the schools to be more selective.
Yeah. Our results show that the difference in submitting an application in the first round rather than the second round could result in a greater likelihood of admission of 3 percentage points, even if the difference means submitting as little as a single day earlier. A move from even later evaluation rounds to the first round could produce even greater premiums. So it could be 3% for NAFSAT, right? Asking about the October LSAT. Well, you don't know when the schools are doing the cutoffs of their rounds. If you
No.
knew for sure that their first round cutoff wasn't until January, then maybe you would be fine. But if their first round cutoff is in October, then you're probably not going to be able to apply with your October LSAT in time to catch that first round. It could be a 3% advantage even to catch the one day earlier to be part of that first round.
Yeah.
Bigger advantage if you were planning to apply later in the cycle.
So, one thing, I'm trying to put a couple comments here together. One of them says that almost all schools wait to send offers until accumulating a sufficiently large pool of applicants. So, what that sounds like to me is that they want enough people in the round to then make a decision for that group.
Yep. Sure.
And
Because
the
how
group-
else do they know? They have no idea. I mean, they can predict, right? They could speculate based on last year, but otherwise they don't know what the new cycle is going to be like, right?
Yeah.
They've got a new US news ranking potentially. There's new news, there's new competition. The economy has changed. Politics has changed. They don't know what it's going to look like this next cycle.
Yeah.
So
They don't.
they wait
Mhm.
until they get a significant chunk. And then they say, okay, based on this first sample of the applications that we're going to get, they must know that this is roughly a third of the applications that we're going to get. And then they make offers to that first third of the applications.
So that's what I wanted to get to is how often do these rounds occur? And it seems like they would be slower at first, right? Because it's going to take longer to get a sufficiently large pool of applicants.
Right.
And then they're going to get faster as you go through the cycle. But because they said 3 percentage points and earlier they said 100 days would give you 8 percentage points, it sounds like a round is a little bit longer than a month. Now, probably at the beginning, maybe it's 2 months. And near the end, it might be less than a month, but it's something along those lines. So one way to think about this, roughly speaking, is that maybe for every month you delay, you're potentially adding, you're decreasing your chances by 2.5%, 3%.
Yeah. It also seems like law schools would have an advantage in the market if they didn't do this. Like if this is what every school does,
Mhm.
it seems like some other schools should just turn around their applications decisions faster.
Yeah.
Surely if you do it continuously instead of in these discrete steps, you would have opportunities to like cheat. I mean, to shave you'd be beating your opposition to the market is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Maybe the challenge of doing it continuously is just too much. Or maybe they can break up their pools. I don't know.
It's probably bureaucratic. It's probably just, this is the way we've always done it. So I'm just going to keep doing it this way. This is just how it's done. But I agree with you, Ben, that especially after the first round, they've got a really good idea what the sample's going to look like, right? Every day the sample gets better and better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can see how they would wait until they get a certain sampling. And then once they get that sampling, they should start making offers. Then when applications come in, they should give offers. The people who are as good as the people they've already given offers to, they should admit those people.
Mm-hmm.
Or anybody who's better than the people that they've already admitted.
Their numbers are actually going up, or their thresholds are going
Right.
up. So, yeah.
Right. So I guess maybe that's what I mean, is that from that point forward, they're going to be looking to admit people who are better than the people that they've already admitted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do schools raise their admission standards toward the end of admission season? First, says this paper, making early offers gives schools more time and opportunity to boost the yield rate. How do they do that? Oh, the yield rate, by the way, is of the people you admit, how many people actually accept. That's your yield. And that's another thing that you have to publish on the 509 report. US News looks at that as part of their ranking of law schools. They look at the school's yield. So you can boost your yield rate. That is, have more people accept your offer. What do? Well, you send gifts.
So you have more time to
Personalized
send
note.
gifts. Yeah.
Personalized note. You have time to invite someone to an admitted students event. Right? You have more time to send them emails and like cultivate this lead. When you apply, that's all you really are, is a lead, right? You're not committing to anything.
Yeah.
They want to know that you're serious.
Sorry, before we go on, there's one thing that this paper is not saying, but it just popped into my head, and I don't know if this is actually true, but I feel like I've heard that if you're trying to decide on a product, the product that you learn about first, you have a bias toward. Like there's like some special affinity to it because it's the one you encountered first or learned about first.
Well, it's like
so
you're
you have
learning
to
that this is
overcome
how
that.
this product works,
Yeah.
right? It's like the things that once they have that certain feature, you're like, oh, so this type of product has this type of feature. Great. It's almost as if you've already invested in that feature.
Mm-hmm.
So now if some other competing product doesn't have that feature, you're going to want the first thing.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Also, wait lists, right? The earlier you apply, the longer they can put you on a wait list, see if you'll write them a letter of continued interest to then see how serious you are about going to the school. Anyway, second, it says, making early offers allows law schools to learn from the responses of recipients of early offers, which helps the schools control the yield and composition of the class. As the median LSAT scores and undergraduate GPAs of the incoming class receive very high weights in the US News rankings, schools often have targets for the composition of the incoming class. By making offers in multiple rounds, schools can learn the preferences of recipients of earlier offers from their responses of acceptance, rejection, or waiting to receive all offers. This allows the schools to hedge enrollment risks by adjusting subsequent decisions on the basis of their responses, which I was speculating all that earlier, but it just makes sense that that's what's going on. Third, making early offers helps law schools gather information about the admission strategies of competing schools, which helps them adjust their own admission strategies.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You can see how people are responding and seeing what they're saying about
what that's
their
like?
offers. Yeah.
That's like, you ever watch a mile race?
Running?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Or even like a 400.
Yeah.
It's maybe a 400 is just like a sprint from the get-go, but like an 800 or a 1600, there's going to be some pacing involved, right?
Yeah.
So this is the schools actually jogging out from the start, looking to their left, looking to their right, like seeing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not just going to, somebody might just sprint out. And if you see somebody sprint out, like, holy shit, a couple of years ago, it was Penn State Dickinson that was out there in August giving full rides.
Yep. What do they know that I don't know?
Different shit every year.
Yeah. Yeah. What do they know? What do they know that I don't know? And
right.
I offered this person a scholarship. They're coming back and saying, well, Penn State is offering me a full ride plus a stipend. And they're going, okay, weird.
Right. Then they look at your numbers and they're like, oh, so Penn State Dickinson is offering a full ride plus stipend for a 162 and a 3.7. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Then they can adjust their shit as they go out further.
Yeah.
So the thing that this suggests is that different schools are actually going to respond to the different cycle in a different way.
Yep.
Some schools might actually sprint to the finish line. it doesn't quite fit the analogy, but I mean, if you don't apply early, you're not even in the race at the beginning.
Yeah.
Regarding early decision, applicants with only small weaknesses in their profiles have an advantage applying through early decision relative to regular decision, but usually at the cost of a smaller or no scholarship. The admission advantage is modest, described as peppercorn by Michigan Law Dean Sarah Zierfoss. That's Dean Z. Couple things there. One, as we have speculated over and over on this show, why the hell would they give you a scholarship if you applied binding early decision? Early decision programs, you're meant to be exchanging some value in exchange for you evaluating my application early so that I get certainty about where I'm going. It's a questionable benefit, but in exchange for knowing earlier, I will bind myself to your school. So that is, if you admit me, I promise to go. That's nothing but good for the schools because it increases their yield.
It's a wildly it's a total loss to you and a total win for the school. They know that if they accept you, you have to go.
I would love for some court to decide not to enforce that.
Yeah.
I mean, do schools actually sue each other though? Or is it just sort of like a gentleman's thing where it's
I bet it's gentleman's. It's kind of like, oh, you accepted somebody who denied our early acceptance. We don't like that.
Well, I remember when I had that student who I've told the story a lot, but she applied early decision to get into UC Hastings and then also got into Berkeley, like regular decision.
Ugh.
So now she's in regular decision at a much better school, higher ranked school. She went to Hastings and said, hey, I accidentally did this. I'm so sorry, but I really would like to take this offer at Berkeley. They acted like she had given them the biggest insult ever. They were like, oh, well, boy, is that, is that really how you want to start your
legal career?
Your legal career? I mean, this is, and it's like that it's a moral problem that you would have entered into this sacred contract with them.
Yeah.
All you learn later in law school is that contracts are made to be broken, and it's not, it's not like you should just always do exactly what you say you were going to do in your contract. That's not what contracts are for.
Yeah.
But they act like that. And then who knows whether they would try to go enforce it or whether they would call Berkeley and say, hey, this student applied early decision to my school.
Please
and
reject
now they want
them.
to get out of it. Please reject them. They might do that. Here, this paper is actually saying that the admission advantage is modest. And you've got Dean Z downplaying it, saying, yeah, it's not really that big of an advantage to apply early decision. So it barely helps you get in. And it is usually at the cost of a smaller or no scholarship. So it could cost you tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars on the price because you applied early decision.
It's the weirdest thing because it's like going to a car dealer and saying, okay, I want to buy a car from you. And I promise if you give me an offer, I will accept it.
Wait, you're the car dealer saying
no,
that?
you're going to a car dealer and you're going to them. You're saying, I'm going to buy a car from you. If you give me an offer on a car, I will buy it.
All I have to do is give you a price?
All you have to do is give me a price. I know there's a match price, but, and that's MSRP or whatever.
I'm going to go do all my calculations, and it's going to come back exactly MSRP.
Yeah. What do you know? Here we go. We got a car for you. Like, the person's not going to walk away. They can't. It's ridiculous. By the way, do you know the history of the word peppercorn?
No.
It has legal history.
Oh.
So I looked it up in Wikipedia. In legal parlance, a peppercorn is a metaphor for a very small cash payment or other nominal consideration used to satisfy the requirements for creating a legal contract. It's consideration. It's the smallest amount of consideration that you can give.
So D&Z is actually using the legal term for the smallest amount of consideration we could possibly give you.
Exactly. And in the past, apparently people sometimes literally gave a peppercorn. One peppercorn.
Yeah. So it's $1 in a contract or something where it's like, nope, I know that this is legally binding.
And
I
I will
wrote the
give it,
check
yeah, I'll give
for
it to you in
$1. Here it
exchange.
is.
Yep.
And that is peppercorn. That's known as peppercorn
Yeah.
consideration.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. So do not apply early decision. By all means, apply early in the cycle, but do not apply to any of these early decision programs. You are giving away a huge advantage for only a nominal. There's really no benefit to you. Unbelievable. Okay, we will link this whole study in the show notes. Marvin, we really appreciate you sending in this paper.
100%.
Anything
Thanks,
more on
Marvin.
that?
No. Bottom line, apply early. Don't apply early decision.
Correct. I've talked about this on the last couple episodes. I'm nearing the end now of Poor Charlie's Almanac. This is this book by Charlie Munger, who is the recently deceased longtime business partner of Warren Buffett at Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah.
He went to Harvard Law School.
Okay.
It's a story about why his dad left the law. So the background is that dad is doing work for this guy, Mr. X, who is just this terrible client.
Mm.
And there's also this gentleman named Grant McFadden, who seems like an ideal client to work for.
Mm.
So little Charlie says, Dad, why do you do so much work for Mr. X, this overreaching blowhard, instead of working more for wonderful men like Grant McFadden? My father said, Grant McFadden treats his employees right, his customers right, and his problems right. And if he gets involved with a psychotic, he quickly walks over to where the psychotic is and works out an exit as fast as he can. Therefore, Grant McFadden doesn't have enough remunerative law business to keep you, little Charlie, in Coca-Cola. But Mr. X is a walking minefield of wonderful legal business.
Wait, what's Coca-Cola in this context? Is that the name of his school or something?
No, shit for the kid.
Oh,
literally Coke for the kid.
Yeah. Okay.
Little Charlie wants to drink sugar.
Okay, keep you in your Coca-Cola. Okay.
So
Gotcha.
Dad, the lawyer, is working for Mr. X so that he can buy Coca-Cola for Charlie.
Gotcha.
Because Grant McFadden doesn't have enough remunerative, that is, business that will actually pay you, law business. Charlie goes on, says, this case demonstrates one of the troubles with practicing law. To a considerable extent, you're going to be dealing with grossly defective people. They create an enormous amount of the remunerative law business. And even when your own client is a paragon of virtue, you'll often be dealing with gross defectives on the other side or even on the bench. That's partly what drove me out of the profession. The rest was my own greed, but my success in serving greed partly allowed me to make easier the process of being honorable and sensible. Like Ben Franklin observed, it's hard for an empty sack to stand upright. I'd argue that my father's model, when I asked him about the two clients, was totally correct didaction. He taught me the right lesson. The lesson? As you go through life, you may have to sell your services to an unreasonable blowhard, especially if that's what you must do to feed your family, but you want to run your own life like Grant McFadden. So this was Charlie's dad continued to be a lawyer, and I believe that the Munger in Munger Tolles, the huge law firm, is Charlie Munger, or his dad at least. Charlie decided to become a capitalist and an entrepreneur, business owner, rather than a lawyer, because he did not want to work with all of these miserable folks. But here's Charlie acknowledging that sometimes that's the decision you have to make in order to feed your family. In short, that's the decision that people make when they go practice big law, right?
That is the decision they're making. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, that was fun. Great book. Really enjoyed reading it and recommend it to anybody who has any interest.
Cool. Let's go to Word of the Week. For this segment, we're getting a question from the Ask button, which says, is there a difference between dispute and reject on the LSAT?
So without looking at any context, I would just say, to me, it seems that one of those is relative and one of them is absolute. Or you can dispute something without rejecting it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think dispute seems softer, right?
Right.
But I guess
if I get an invoice
yeah,
and I thought it was complete bullshit, if I knew it was complete bullshit, like if it was obvious spam,
mm-hmm.
I wouldn't bother disputing it. I would just reject it. Like just delete.
Yeah.
Shred it. Don't read it. A disputed invoice, I might end up paying in full.
See, it's weird though, because if you dispute a conclusion or you reject a conclusion, in both cases, I think you think it's wrong.
Sure. But reject does seem pretty final, right? Reject seems like you're taking an action where you're just like, no, I refuse this.
Yeah.
And that's different from saying, well, let's talk about it. Like opening up a dispute or saying somebody may be wrong is not quite the same thing as anyway. I could also see these words being used interchangeably because there are probably times where disputing and rejecting mean the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I would think that they are a lot of times when you're rejecting something, you're rejecting it because you dispute it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody comes to you with some really bullshit belief and you're like, that's bullshit and I reject it. Like you've disputed it and you've rejected it. So I could see certainly in some contexts, I could see these things meaning the exact same thing, but I could see them meaning different things in other contexts.
Context matters a lot.
Okay. Is there anything more that you wanted to say about that one?
No, I think that's key. Where did you see the word dispute? Where did you see the word reject? And why did you get confused? That would matter. Cool. Anything else?
To dispute something is to argue as a verb. It is to argue about something, to discuss heatedly. To reject something, going to be pretty similar, I would imagine. To reject something is to dismiss as inadequate, inappropriate, or not to one's taste. Yeah, to dismiss something is definitely different from disputing it. I can see how they can mean the same thing, but I can see how they can mean something a little bit more specific too. Reject seems stronger to me.
Yep.
That said, context is everything. These aren't like words that have special LSAT definitions.
True. Be LSAT famous. Please ask questions or share news with us on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or on our socials at LSATdemon. If you have questions about the LSAT Demon, email help@lsatdemon.com. Also, check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 458 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.